Get your ears wrapped around the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast. All the scoop you need to know, from college basketball to the NBA and even March Madness. News of your rising stars, topics on and off the hardwood. This is the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the GSMC Basketball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, as always, Jeff Malinoff, and with me is not Mark Souza. He has the week off because he won his trivia contest last week. And I'm doing today and tomorrow, so tune in tomorrow for the fantasy football, and just regular sports podcast with me and me alone, because this is the Jeff Show now. I am Jeff Malinoff, as always, your host. And now we have basketball to talk about. We got Christmas game roundup. This could be our first segment. Next, we'll talk about the other games that happened in the past weekend. And also, we'll talk about who is arguably the best team in the NBA. Is it the Warriors? We'll find out. As well as we'll do a little MVP debate for the final segment. And, well, it's hard to do a debate with one person, but I'll manage. But first, let's talk about Christmas Day NBA games, because there sure were a good number of them. On the 25th of December 2018, we had the Lakers and the Warriors. That was the main game of the day. Yeah, it was a night technically, but, you know, makes sense. Christmas Day, Christmas night, same thing. Anyways, the Lakers didn't even have LeBron in the fourth quarter of that game. And they dismantled the Golden State Warriors 127-101. LeBron nearly a triple-double going into the half as his team. And then he kind of had a groin injury in the third quarter and exited the game did not return. He's on a day-to-day now as of the groin injury. But his team still held on and won by 26 points against the defending champion Golden State Warriors, who are looking to repeat for the third straight year, just like the Los Angeles Lakers did in 2000 to 2002. And like the Chicago Bulls in the 90s when they did it twice. I guess that was the last couple of times there was a three-peat. But there has not been a three-peat since. If my memory is right, let me think about it right now. Back-to-back Warriors, if they didn't lose to Golden State, then they would win 4 in a row. Or, I'm sorry, if Golden State didn't lose to Cleveland, they would have 4 in a row, which is pretty insane. But, yeah, let's see. 2002 makes sense. The Lakers did it back-to-back 09 and 10. They did not three-peat, though. So, yeah, there were back-to-back teams like the Heat and the Lakers and the Warriors, such as right now. But there have not been a three-peat team since the 2002 Lakers did it. So, moving on. We got the Lakers handily defeating, like I said, the Golden State Warriors. LeBron James had 21 minutes to play, had 17 points, 13 rebounds, 5 assists, nearly that triple-double mark. But again, that third quarter injury sidelined him. Kuzma had 19 points himself. Zubac, the center, had 18 points, 11 rebounds himself, a double-double for his own right. Rondo had another double-double himself, 15 points and 10 assists. He had a pretty good game. But there was something really about this game that really impressed me, was the three-point shooting for the Los Angeles Lakers. Now, this is a team that a lot of people are saying, like, three-point is kind of their Achilles heel. And I was one of them, and so was Mark Souza was also one of them. And we were talking about this, and we were also saying, like, yeah, they really need to work on their threes. Apparently they listened to this podcast because they shot threes like crazy on Christmas. I was going to say last week for some reason. But 2 days ago, they just shot it like crazy. 3-point, 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 3-point. And they were going in. Lance Stevenson was making a few. And there were just a lot of 3-point attempts from this team, definitely. And it worked to perfection as they won this game. I know on the stat sheet it doesn't look as good, but they did go 39% from the three. They made 13 threes this game against the Warriors, compared to the Warriors only 9 threes, which is very unlike the Golden State Warriors, the 3-point machines that they are. I mean, Stephen Curry only had 15 points, which in 37 minutes of play for Steph Curry is very low. Like, usually you expect him at least, 25 points? Would that be a fair assumption of him on a daily basis, on a game-by-game basis? I would think so. I mean, Kevin Durant even didn't lead the team in points either. He had 21. Andre Iguodala off the bench led the Warriors in points with 23. So this was definitely not the Warriors' night, as this was all about the Los Angeles Lakers. And this begs the question, does this mean that the Lakers might be a team to the team to make it to the Western Conference Finals and overthrow the Golden State Warriors as finals appearances? We'll see, but I am still having my doubts. I think when the playoff comes, we'll know who is real and who is fake. And what I mean by that is, what team is playing off momentum and playing off maybe luck, and what team is playing based off talent and ability and just being the best overall. That's where the playoffs really matter. And I know we're not even close to the playoffs. We still have a long season to go. I mean, the finals aren't really until June, and we're in December right now. So we got a couple more months. We got about half a year left to go of the season when you think about it. But I will say the fact that Lakers are looking good right now as of late. In the standings, the Lakers are moving up. They are the 4th seed with a 20-14 win-loss record. Golden State, even with this loss, still remains the top of the Western Conference. And it was Denver at one point, but they lost yesterday to go losing 2 straight, which is pretty bad for Denver because they've been playing extremely well. Oklahoma City has also lost 2 straight, so Los Angeles is taking, if they go on a winning streak, they can take control if they beat the Kings tomorrow. Or is it today? I will check because I can do that. It is today. They're playing the Kings today. So that's going to be a very interesting game because the Kings are actually no joke now. I wouldn't call them a joke. They're 18-16, Lakers 20-14, so they're pretty close together in win-loss record. But anyways, moving on from that, let's continue with the Christmas games. We have the Celtics and 76ers. That's the Celtics in overtime, edged by the Philadelphia 76ers by a score of 121-114. And the talk of the game had to be Kyrie Irving. 40 minutes, 40 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists. He averaged basically a point a minute because 40 minutes, 40 points. Makes sense. And Jason Tatum had a great game himself, 23 points and 10 rebounds. And Morris had 23 points himself. There was a lot of scoring going on for Boston. And I said this on the sports podcast today, that this league is now getting so used to having 120-point games, like, for one team. Like, used to be back, like, a couple of years ago, 98-104 would be like, oh, that's a high-scoring game. Now that'd be, wow, that's a really low-scoring game. 121-114 is kind of the norm nowadays. It was really incredible to think about how many points are being put up each game. I mean, you look at the last couple of days, and there's been multiple games where it goes like the Warriors and Clippers, 129-127. We'll get on that one later. Timberwolves, Thunder, 114-112, 115, 119, 111, 105. You know, all these games, all these points have been pretty insane. And it's just become like we're almost numb to it already, which is really incredible. Just that's how fast the scoring pace has been. But on the 76ers side, they did their best to try to win this game, but again, it was not meant to be because of overtime. Embiid with 34 points and 16 rebounds. Ben Simmons also had 14 rebounds himself with 11 points. So, yeah, I think the 76ers are still a great team. Jimmy Butler had 24 points himself. I still think the 76ers are still a contender for the Eastern Conference and making it to the finals, to be honest with you. But this loss kind of hurt them. And this puts the Celtics back in that conversation of how good this team really is and how can they make it back to the finals, or can they, well, back to 2008, makes sense, 2010, whenever last time they made it. But with Kyrie Irving possibly leaving at the end of the season, there's still a lot of debate involved in that. So we will see how that transpire. Boom, got it, nailed it. And I should be expecting a call from the president to thank me for that anytime now. I guess. I don't know. I don't know why I went there, but I did. Anyways, moving on. Another game that reached over 100 points. Rockets and Thunder, 113-109 as James Harden, with Kyrie Irving hitting 40 points. Harden counters with 41 points, but not a double-double as he had 6 rebounds and 7 assists. 15 of 35, 5 of 16 from 3. So he was shooting at nausea. And that begs the question, does that show how good he is that he scores 41 points? Or is it like, yeah, if I shot 35 times, I would get 41 points as well? Is that the case? That actually might be. Because one of Achilles' heel for James Harden is his defense. So I honestly never agree with the fact that he's totally an MVP candidate. I get triple-doubles are impressive, and I totally understand why he got MVP. But for me, MVP, you got to put some defense effort into it. And Harden is one of the guys that does not. Still, like, everyone's like, oh, he's getting better at defense. Well, he played no defense for the longest time, so that's how I see it. But, again, James Harden, 41 points is still very, very impressive. Obviously, still a top 10 player in the NBA. I'm not denying how talented he is. I'm just saying the amount of shots he's taking, of course, is a lot. And 35, if you shoot 35 times, get 41 points, that makes sense. Anyways, moving on. Still in this game, Austin Rivers' debut with the Rockets, 10 points off the bench, pretty good. Capella had 23 rebounds and 16 points for the Rockets, which kind of countered the 6 rebounds Harden had. So 23 rebounds. I love it when there's a guy with over 20 rebounds in a game. Like, that's just pure dominance off the glass, and that really shows that wins games in the long run. I think those 23 rebounds are just as important as those 41 points from Harden, in my opinion. And looking at the Thunder, Westbrook had 21-9-9, nearly a triple-double for him. Paul George, 28-14. Paul George has been playing excellent lately, and these two guys are really keeping this Thunder team in the running for playoff, not supremacy, but just playoff run, because of the fact that, there's still the Rockets, of course, which is who they lost to, and there's still the Warriors, and there's still the Lakers. There's still so many teams in the West that can still make a big run just like them. So it's not like, oh, this team's totally going to the Western Conference Finals or not even past the first round because of how competitive the Western Conference is. It's unbelievable how competitive the Western Conference is. And you can say that even the East is just as competitive, but I think it's different in a way of how good the teams are in comparison when you look at each conference. I mean, I feel there's many more better teams in the West that there are in the East, and that's just been a fact for so long. And I think a lot of people would agree with me on that, definitely. I know Mark would. Miss you, Mark. Anyways, moving on, we got the 9-win Knicks playing arguably the best team in the Eastern Conference behind the Raptors, but you can say they have competition to be the best, the Milwaukee Bucks. 109-95. Don't know why the Knicks were on Christmas Day television. Maybe it's just that market, like everyone said before. But Giannis with 30 points, 14 rebounds. We'll talk about that in the final segment about MVP running, but for me, he's my MVP. I'll explain that in the last segment. But again, the Knicks, a lot of people are saying they're still in the running for Kevin Durant and maybe even Kyrie Irving to bring in because of the big market. And I understand they have a big market, but they really haven't been picking up a lot of big-time players. I mean, Joakim Noah, that's not really a big pickup in my opinion back when they did that. And also, I just have to say, I can understand why Kevin Durant would want to go there to be the guy, to be the number one. I get that. And Kyrie Irving might want to go there too. But I don't know. playing for the New York Knicks, I know they have a lot of money. I know they have a huge market in New York City. They're one of the faces of New York, you can say. And I don't know. I just don't see them as a team I would be attracted to go to, me personally. But I understand the value that the Knicks organization has. Just the team and the talent itself is still a lot to be desired. Before we go to break, we'll talk about the final game of Christmas. Trailblazers and Utah Jazz. The Jazz beat the Blazers 117-96. Damian Lillard with 20 points and 5 rebounds and 4 assists. But Donovan Mitchell helped his team again, 19 points. And he's starting to get back into the groove of things. I think Utah's starting to pick up some momentum. I know they're still on the bottom looking in the playoffs at the moment. But again, it's really early. Anything can happen. And the Jazz could end up. But I thought and Mark thought they were a top 3 team. Obviously, that's not the case. Maybe it was a fluke last year. Who knows? But I will definitely say that the Utah Jazz can still be a contender in the playoffs. Just where they're going to end up is the question. If they don't end up in the draft in the top 8, I wouldn't be surprised by that either because of how good everyone else is playing in the West. And if you want to read into that, you totally can. But I know reading sometimes you don't have the time to read. But what it would look like if we all listen more. Listening to audiobooks inspires us, motivates us, even brings us closer. And there's no better place to listen than Audible. Audible has the largest selection of audiobooks on the planet. And now Audible members get more than ever before. Each month they get 3 titles of their choice. 1 audiobook, 2 Audible originals, and fitness programs they can't get anywhere else. There's never been a better time to experience Audible. Try it free for 30 days by visiting audible.com/GSMCbook or by texting the code GSMCbook to 500-500. Once again, if you want to try this for 30 days by visiting audible.com/GSMCbook or texting the code GSMCbook to 500-500 to get this 30-day free trial for Audible. Don't miss out.
What happens to your decision-making when you drink? Well, after one drink, you feel confident. A few more, and calling your ex at 1 a.m. seems like a great idea. And you're pretty sure the secret to a great taco is 4-day-old macaroni. The bottom line, drunk you doesn't make great decisions. So you're risking a DUI or worse if you count on him to get you home. Plan before you party. Get home safe. Brought to you by Washington Target Zero.
Welcome back, everyone, to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. We just finished up at the Christmas games that happened. Now let's go over to the past weekend where other games happened, shall we? Well, the thing is with these games that happened, Saturday we had Doncic versus the Warriors, Mavericks, and Warriors. Warriors won this game 120-116. And Doncic had 19 points, 3 rebounds, 5 assists. Pretty decent. DeAndre Jordan with 23 rebounds himself. But this was a Kevin Durant, Stephen Curry game, as they both had over 20 points. 22 for Curry, 29, for Durant, and 12 rebounds for him. And overall, this was just a classic Warriors win. There's not much to say about it. But right now, that was one of the main games I want to talk about. There wasn't really a lot of... Actually, speaking of it, there was a triple overtime game this weekend on Saturday between the Suns and the Wizards, as in almost an hour of game, basically an hour of game time, there was 149-146 Wizards victory, with Bradley Beal carrying the Wizards to 40 points, 11 rebounds, 15 assists, but Devin Booker himself also had 33 points and 14 assists. DeAndre Ayton with probably the best game of his career so far with 26 points and 17 rebounds. But you can get that when you play for almost an hour. Well, actually, DeAndre Ayton only played for less than 40 minutes and got 26 points, 17 rebounds. But with 55 minutes, almost an hour of playtime, Devin Booker had 33 points. And same with Bradley Beal, 54 minutes, 40 points, and just a crazy triple overtime victory for the Wizards. But again, it's one of those games that's like, at what cost? And then you look at a game between the Nuggets and Clippers. Clippers don't even go to overtime, and they win 132-111. They almost match the points from a triple overtime game against a very good Denver Nuggets team on when there was the beginning of their 2-game losing streak. And the question I have for that is, should the Nuggets be concerned? I mean, they lost their first place in the Western Conference to the Warriors. They've lost 2 in a row. Is this like back to earth type of thing for the Nuggets, or is it, okay, let's rebound and go back to the way things were kind of Nuggets? Now, this is probably their biggest challenge this entire season. Not just losing 2 straight, but the fact remains, when you are on a losing streak, the best teams can get out of it quicker than those of not, obviously. Now, this is put up or shut up time for Denver. Is this are they back to reality? Oh, there goes gravity, Eminem reference type team where they are going to go back to the bottom of the Western Conference, maybe even out of the playoffs entirely? Or is this a Nuggets team that's different than we've seen in the past and actually is elite and can be one of the best teams in basketball? That is a serious question. And their next game, I believe, is today. When they don't play today. They play tomorrow, where they will play the San Antonio Spurs. So this is definitely a statement game for the Nuggets, as they need to win this one. Not just because they're on a losing streak, but to prove that they belong in this spot. They belong in the conversation of the top teams in the West. Maybe not just in the West, but in the top teams in the NBA altogether. And so it's a huge question to be answered tomorrow when they play. And that is something serious I think they should really look at in that. That's a big-time matchup for them to bounce back from that. Thunder beat Jazz, like I said, 107-106 this weekend on Saturday. Heat beat the Bucks. They upset them in a kind of astounding 94-87 victory. Giannis with under 10 points, 9 points, 13 rebounds. I still think he's in line for MVP, but still, that's shocking to think about him going under 10 points, which is extremely poor for MVP contender, no doubt about it. Sunday, we had the Clippers and the Warriors, probably the biggest game of the weekend, as the Warriors held on to win 129-127. Really shows that the Clippers are maybe the real deal. That made sense. But this shows that like the Clippers can be a serious contender in the West. But again, Curry had 42 points and Durant had 35 points, so there's really not much you can do when those two are hot at the moment. But I definitely consider the Los Angeles Clippers a serious threat in the Western Conference, no question about it. And looking at the games yesterday, there was also a very interesting game between the Timberwolves and the Bulls. And there was kind of a cool moment in the return by Derrick Rose, the return to Chicago. And he was playing pretty great, and when he was on the line to shoot free throws, he got an MVP chance from the Chicago crowd, and he couldn't help but smile. So I thought that was a very cool moment in the fact that it's like Chicago still cares for him, or it's like there's no hard feelings type of thing. Like there's no booing. Like usually when a guy does MVP and then he just comes off the face of the earth and then leaves the team type of thing, it's like, oh, good riddance to him. But it's almost like this team was like, we still care about you. We still love you. Well, the fan base at least felt that. I felt that. And, of course, he's a hometown guy, which also helps. But hearing the Chicago fans chant MVP, I wasn't obviously like, oh, you're going to get MVP, you're in line for MVP, but it was like a we remember, we love you type of feel. It's, how do I explain? Yeah, basically, we remember, we will love you. It's like talking to your ex, and you both still have feelings for each other, and you go, you know what, I still love you, and the other guy, and then they go, I love you too. And you can't really get back together because of circumstances, but there's still love there. There's still feelings there. That's basically what this is like. Maybe that's too specific, but who knows? That's how I think this whole relationship between the Bulls, fan base at least, and Derrick Rose is. And Derrick Rose had a pretty good game, though. 24 points, 8 assists. He had a good game. This was a 119-94 victory for the Timberwolves against the very weak Bulls. I think that speaks for itself how bad this Bulls team really is. But Levine off the bench at 28 points, which is impressive, all things considered. But Anthony Towns, the big cat, had 20-20 game, a 20-point, 20-rebound performance, which is an awesome stat line, I think. So that's how that went down. And basically, when you're looking at both these teams, the Timberwolves and the Chicago Bulls, Bulls are almost in dead last. They're 9-26, tied with the New York Knicks. They did come off a victory, so they're not on a losing streak. But the Knicks lost 5 straight. Cleveland Cavaliers are the bottom, 8-27 with lost 4 straight. But they are officially the worst team in the NBA because Phoenix is now 9-26. So there's multiple teams that are 9-26, which is saying something. But again, Chicago gave love to Derrick Rose, which was probably the highlight of yesterday's games. As for the Raptors, they got a victory edging out the Miami Heat 106-104, and Kawhi Leonard is a beast. 30 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists. Another guy that I could think can easily get MVP. And you're looking at this team, the Raptors team. Can they be stopped? Like, I know they've lost some games, obviously. Like, every team's going to lose some games. It's not going to be a team that's undefeated. But 26-10. Best record in the NBA by 3 games at least. And does that show that maybe they are the best team in the NBA? Hard to deny their record, hard to deny their play, hard to deny their stats. Like, they seem to really show what's going on. And speaking of the Nuggets playing the Spurs, they have to play them again because they played them yesterday in a 111-103 loss. So remember, the Nuggets are on a 2-game losing streak now. And so they play the Spurs again. They need this victory. They need to prove that they still belong in this list of elite teams in the West. Spurs also need to prove that, hey, we're still here. They're still like 8th place, roughly around there, and they still need to remind people that we matter. We still have Popovich, we still have DeMar DeRozan, we have a great talent in him, and Marcus Aldridge. We might not have the same team that won numerous championships, but we still are a team to be reckoned with, and I think they're starting to gain that respect again. So I think that's really nice too. Also, I would say that the Nuggets just need to bounce back. I mean, this is just a must-win. Must-win strong, but I would say momentum-wise and statement-wise, this is must-win. Because obviously, they're still second in the West, comfortably second in the West. They're not really close to anyone in the bottom 8. I mean, the 8th place has 19 wins, granted, but they have 21. I mean, it is only 2 wins, but it just feels like they are not going to drop that bad, and no team's going to win and just swap them in the bottom of the West. So that's just how I see it going. But yeah, I wouldn't. Reading into it is a little much, but I'm glad you're all listening to this podcast. And just let me ask you, wouldn't it be great if we all just listen more? Listening to audiobooks inspires us, motivates us, and even brings us closer. There's no better place to listen than Audible. Audible has the largest selection of audiobooks on the planet, and now Audible members get more than ever before. Each month they get 3 titles of their choice. 1 audiobook, 2 Audible originals that are just exclusive, of course, to Audible, and fitness programs that are just for Audible. You cannot get them anywhere else. There's never been a better time to experience Audible. Try it free for 30 days by visiting audible.com/GSMCbook or entering the code GSMCbook to 500500. Remember, you want to get this offer, you want to try Audible out, go to audible.com/GSMCbook or entering the code GSMCbook and texting it to 500500.
What happens to your decision making when you drink? Well, after one drink, you feel confident. A few more, and calling your ex at 1 a.m. seems like a great idea. And you're pretty sure the secret to a great taco is 4-day-old macaroni. The bottom line, drunk you doesn't make great decisions. So you're risking a DUI or worse if you count on him to get you home. Plan before you party. Get home safe. Brought to you by Washington Target Zero.
Welcome back, everyone, to the GSMC Basketball Podcast. We finished talking about some games that happened this weekend and last weekend and Christmas and all that good stuff. Now, let's get into maybe who the best team in the NBA is. If we look at the rankings for each NBA, or rankings or standings for each NBA team, we have the Raptors 3 games ahead of the second best team, which I would say is the Milwaukee Bucks, in the standings of the Eastern Conference. Now this begs the question. Are the Raptors as good as their record says they are? Or is it the help of they're in the Eastern Conference, which is arguably most likely weaker than the Western Conference? And if you look at the Eastern Conference, you have simple things as like teams that are in the playoff hunt, that are in playoff situations. Like, well, I'll go through the order. First place, Toronto. Second place, Milwaukee. Third place, Indiana with 23-12. Fourth place, 76ers, 22-13. Fifth place, Celtics. And now here's where things get interesting. From 6 to 8, Detroit, Charlotte, and Miami are all in the playoffs if the season ended today. Detroit is 16-16. Charlotte is 16-17. And Miami is 16-17. 2 out of the 3 teams that are in 6 through 8 are losing records. Now, this begs the question. With Toronto playing more of the Eastern Conference teams than they are Western Conference, and then you look at the Western Conference. And I will show you, and we'll go in order of them. 1, Golden State, 23-12. 2, Denver Nuggets, 21-11. 3, Oklahoma City Thunder, 21-12. 4, LA Lakers, 20-14. 5, LA Clippers, 20-14. 6, Trailblazers, 19-15. 7th, Houston Rockets, 18-15. San Antonio Spurs, 19-16. And these are the teams that are on the outside looking in through the Western Conference. The Sacramento Kings are 9th with 18-16. Memphis Grizzlies are 10th, 18-16. And that there are 2 teams with winning records that are outside of the playoffs in the Western Conference. There's also a 17-18 Jazz and a 16-17 Mavericks and a 16-18 Minnesota Timberwolves. So if you put, let's just say we put the 2 teams with winning records out that are outside of the Western Conference playoffs, the Sacramento Kings and Memphis Grizzlies, both with 18 wins. They would take the 6th and 7th spot in the Eastern Conference playoffs. Doesn't that mean something? Do you think the rules should change? I understand why there's conferences. I understand why. But maybe, just maybe, instead of conferences, hear me out now. Instead of conferences, we do random generated conferences. And what I mean by random is, instead of just East teams or Eastern Conference and Western Conference, we do like National League and American League. You know what I mean? Like, we have East teams, but they're not always playing Eastern teams. And Western teams, like the National League has the LA Dodgers. And the American League has the LA Angels of Anaheim, California, United States, planet Earth. And I bring that up because, like, the LA Clippers and the LA Lakers are in the same exact conference, in the same exact division. Now, should the LA Clippers be in a separate conference than the LA Lakers? And should the New York Knicks be in a separate conference to the Brooklyn Nets? And so on and so forth. You get what I'm saying here. And maybe this changes up, making the conferences a little more fair. I'm not sure what you wouldn't call them Western and Eastern conferences. You wouldn't call them National League and American League, obviously. And then there's also in the NFL, you got the NFC and AFC. Maybe you do a national conference and an American conference. Or you do, well, actually, that would make sense. ABA, NBA, National Basketball Association, America. You don't obviously call them NBA and NBA, but it's like the AFL and NFL when they merged. It's one league's AFL, one league's NFL, and then they made it National Football Conference and one American Football Conference. So you could do a national conference and a American conference in the NBA and make the conferences a little more even. And that gives teams that keep getting snubbed in the Western Conference or vice versa opportunities to actually make the playoffs when, well, I guess not vice versa, because the Eastern Conference teams, there's been multiple seasons where a losing record team makes it into the playoffs, and there's been multiple seasons when winning record teams don't make it into the playoffs in the Western Conference. So it gives the teams that always are in the getting snubbed, or instead of getting snubbed in the Western Conference, you go to another conference and have an opportunity to make the playoffs. And there's always the idea of the maybe just the best 16 teams in the NBA play each other, play in the playoffs regardless of conferences, and do conferences just based off scheduling purposes. But I think a national conference and an American conference would work, but I understand why they're hesitant to do that, because the conferences and divisions are already set in stone, and you can't really do a Pacific division anymore. You can't do an Atlantic, or you can't do a Pacific division. You can't do Eastern division type of stuff. I know I can't think of the names off the top of my head, but you understand what I'm getting at. I just think maybe it'd be better overall if, let's say, Toronto was in the same conference as Oklahoma City and Milwaukee and the LA Lakers in the same conference. And I just feel like it'll give more opportunities for other teams to make the playoffs. Instead of losing record teams in the playoffs, we would see all winning record teams in the playoffs in these certain conferences if we split them up evenly. And I know that would maybe that have to go to the Players Association of the NBA. Maybe that have to be it'll have to be approved by the owners and all that stuff. But I think it could work. I really do, because obviously there's a flaw in the Western and Eastern conferences. One is superior to the other. It's not like it's hidden. Like maybe the Eastern Conference is not as good. No, people know the Eastern Conference is not as good as the Western Conference overall. There are some great teams in the Eastern Conference. I'm not taking anything away from the Raptors. I'm not taking anything away from the Bucks or the Pacers or the 76ers or the Celtics for that matter. But what I'm saying is there are losing teams with losing records in the playoffs in the Eastern Conference, and there's teams with winning records in the Western Conference not making the playoffs. There's something wrong with that. And maybe the records will be different if Toronto played more Western Conference teams. I don't know. Maybe they win more games and they prove that they are one of the best. I think it could work. And I know they do inter-conference matchups, and I get that. But you're obviously playing more Eastern Conference teams than you're going to play Western Conference teams if you're the Toronto Raptors. See it at least. I see it as an opportunity. But again, I don't see it happening. What I would say, though, is Toronto has proven that they're good. Kawhi Leonard has proven to be an MVP-like candidate. We'll get on MVP candidates in the last segment of the day. But I will say that there is something wrong with the conferences and the playoff positioning in the NBA. Because of the fact you're dividing the conferences up by region, you're putting poor teams against great teams and good teams against amazing teams. And maybe even great teams versus amazing teams and so on and so forth. What I'm just trying to say is maybe mixing up the conferences, having one side not just be West and not one side just be East, but make it to where everyone is even and it's not based off region, and it's just maybe randomly generated. And I don't want to do randomly generated. I meant an equal number of Eastern and Western teams on one conference and an equal number of Eastern and Western conference on the other conference. Eastern and Western teams on the other conference, excuse me. I think that would fit better overall in the scheme of things in the NBA. And I know they say the NBA has never been hotter right now. And I was having a talk with my father about this. And he said, I told him that due to the ratings and everything else, the NBA has never been as hot as it is right now. And he was shocked by that statement. He was saying how they still need to fix what's happening in the NBA because there's only 3 or 4 teams that are probable to win. And I understand that. I understand exactly where he was coming from. But I think the main thing is you also have to think about it's just that's how the free agency was going. That's how the free agency works. The people have a lot of a lot of freedom, obviously free agency, to go to wherever they want and to win. And how I see this, and he was like, maybe we can change it. He thinks that maybe the change of free agency might help. But that thing is, you can't let that happen because the NBA Players Association will probably say we're going to go on strike because you're changing our freedom to go to whatever team we want. And, of course, the NBA has tried ways of saying stay with the team you're on with the Supermax contracts and staying with X amount of years and you get the Supermax. And it's worked kind of with some teams, but not all teams. Obviously not with LeBron. Maybe with Giannis it might work. Not with Kawhi. It worked with Steph. It worked with Harden. So it's worked with some players, but not all players. And, of course, Kevin Durant's probably not going to stay with Golden State, but he might stay with Golden State, so who knows how that's going to go down. But the fact remains that there's something flawed in the NBA when it comes to super teams forming. Because of the fact that there's only 5 guys on the court at once. You can make a super team much easier than you can in the NFL or the MLB because there's more players involved. There's 11 guys on the field in the NFL. You can't do a super team there because of the salary cap. I know there's still a salary cap in the NBA, but you can really squeeze around that when there's only 5 guys on the court. Because if you have 5 guys on the court, 2 of them could be amazing and carry those other 3. Or even 1, LeBron James, for example. And when you have like a big 3, that's all you need. Or a big 4. That's just unfair. You know? And there was a big 3 in Miami. There was a big 3 in Boston with Kevin Garnett and Ray Allen and Paul Pierce, and they won a championship. So you don't need all 5 guys to be amazing. You need at least 2 to really be considered a super team, kind of, and maybe 4 more all-stars in there. But what I'm saying is it's a lot easier to make a team. I don't want to say unfair, but I want to say I don't want to say super either. That's too obvious. But I obviously make a team a juggernaut. There we go. Make a team a juggernaut easier in the NBA than anywhere else. I don't know how you can change that. You can't. You could try, but there'll be a lot of talk with the NBA PA and other things of that nature. That's how I see it, at least. And when it comes to the best team in the NBA, Toronto has the upper hand in that matter. But again, this might just lead to the Warriors dominating the Western Conference again and winning the NBA championship again. Because we've said that over and over again, that no matter how good other teams are, we're going to see the Warriors in the finals because we're accustomed to that. We're numb to it. And it's just a fact now. It's kind of an unfortunate fact. Maybe not unfortunate for the fan base, but unfortunate for the fact of the sport is now predictable. The sport is kind of turning like professional wrestling is choreographed. They know the outcome of the winner, but the fans don't. And they like to also surprise you with some upset victories. But in the NBA, there's no predetermination, but you still know who's winning. That's just my take on the whole thing about maybe how free agency works and who the best team in the NBA is. But I still believe the Warriors are the best team in the NBA. And maybe my idea is to change will work. Who knows? But we are going to take a short break. When we get back, I'll be talking about the MVP candidates in my mind who can be definitely MVP. Spoilers, Giannis is going to be on it, and Kawhi Leonard is going to be on it, but who also will be on my MVP potential list, candidate list? That makes sense. Yes. We'll be right back right after this.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome to the final segment of the GSMC Basketball Podcast. We finished talking about maybe the best team in the NBA and maybe how to change up who you can consider the best team and change up the conferences a little bit. And so we'll move on to the MVP candidate race. And with that, I'm going off stats as of December 21st. These are the stats that of December 21st. And my first person I'm going to talk about is Giannis, the Greek freak. And he honestly has become a true superstar, let's get real. And these are his stats. Let's listen to these. 26.7 points a game, 12.9 rebounds, 6.1 assists, 1.3 blocks, 1.3 steals. That is incredible. And add on to the fact this was as of December 21st. So think about that. And then here are the games after December 21st that the Bucks have played. I know he struggled with that 9-point, 13 rebound struggle, but after that game, he bounced back, and on Christmas had that 30 points, 14 rebound game with 2 blocks and 4 steals. So he evened out his stats, made him after that after that 9-point kind of disappointing effort. But I think what it comes down to is Giannis is carrying this Bucks team to greatness. This Bucks team is a serious contender, and Giannis is arguably the best player in the NBA right now. And it's hard to deny that. And with how good he's playing, it's borderline unfair. I don't know how else to explain it. And the way they've been playing, not just the Bucks, but just Giannis has made everyone else around him better. And that's what an MVP is like in my mind. Most valuable player. Not best statistic player, most valuable. And Giannis for the Bucks is their most valued player. Hands down. I don't think there's any disagreement on that. Now moving on, this is still as of December 21st stats I'm reading, by the way. And there is another guy who I said, Kawhi Leonard of Toronto. He's been averaging 26.4 points a game, 8.5 rebounds, 3.2 assists, and 1.8 steals. And the Raptors continue to win against elite-level competition, even without Leonard in the lineup, as they've won some great games. And how good their depth on the lineup is. But that doesn't change the fact that the Raptors are, or Leonard, how that matter, is a next-level star. He's a superstar. He was a superstar in San Antonio once he won the NBA Finals MVP. And since then, he's just been a dominant player, not just on the defensive side, on the offensive side too. 26.4 points a game. He's had multiple 30-point games. He's had multiple double-doubles. And with him, instead of DeRozan, this team, the thing is, maybe if you traded Lowry instead of DeRozan, I know DeRozan, I think, is the better player than Lowry, in my opinion. And that's why they traded for DeRozan. But Lowry is still kind of struggling overall this season. He's not the guy anymore. Leonard's the guy. Kawhi Leonard's now the guy for the Raptors. And if the Raptors are making the finals at any time in this span of dominance they have, I guess you can say, this is the year. But they still have the Bucks to worry about. They still have the Celtics to worry about. They still have the 76ers to worry about. Maybe even the Detroit Pistons, because they still play at a high level as well. But I'm not taking anything of Kawhi Leonard because of how dominant he's been playing. He's been playing unbelievable. There's no doubt. Of course, we have to look at LeBron James in the MVP candidate mark. He has averaged 28 points, 7.9 rebounds, 7 assists, and 1.3 steals. So nearly a triple-double this season. And nearly double-double average this season. And so he's starting to hit his stride in this month with the Lakers and how well they've been playing. He had a slow start at first, which is probably why his stats are not as high. And he is going to be on a day-to-day with that groin injury, which might play a factor later on in the season. But honestly, I put LeBron up there again as just someone that can make everyone else look like superstars. He's just something special about LeBron James that no one else has, maybe or ever will have. It's hard to deny the greatness. Like, people are like, "Oh, Michael Jordan's still the best ever." I'm more convinced that LeBron is better than Michael Jordan. No disrespect to Michael Jordan at all. I have nothing but respect for Michael Jordan. But when it comes to athleticism and statistics and just overall play, LeBron is better. Not by success, because of the 6 championships Jordan has compared to the 3 LeBron have. But there is still a dominance factor when it comes to athletic ability and speed and height. And, I mean, he's 2 inches taller, LeBron is, but just overall athleticism. But again, maybe Jordan's the tougher one, or Jordan's the more intelligent one. Who knows? But the fact remains, LeBron is still considered, I would put him in the top 5 greatest of all time. And, of course, we also had to talk about Stephen Curry in an MVP candidate. 29 points a game, 5.3 assists, 5.1 rebounds, 1.3 steals. And they've been up and down this season, but he's still playing at all-time level. But Jokic from Denver, he's one of the guys that you can consider being an MVP. 18 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, 1.5 steals a game. For a team that's seriously been benefactory. And he's a 7-footer, averaging 7.4 assists. And he's averaging nearly a triple-double a game. And I think he's underlooked at because of the fact he's on the Denver Nuggets. Not as big as a market as Golden State or in LA. But I understand Giannis is not in a big-time market in Milwaukee. But he has the charisma of a superstar. I know that sounds a little odd, but he came out of Europe highly touted. And he's played against some of the top teams in the NBA already and has proven that he can handle each and every one of them. So that's why Giannis is still my number one in the NBA Finals, or in the NBA MVP race, excuse me. But fact of the matter is, Giannis is the man. And he should be winning MVP or Leonard. I would be shocked if he doesn't. I would be shocked if neither Leonard or Giannis don't win MVP. But that is all the time we have today. Thank you so much for joining me. Please tune in tomorrow. We'll be doing football, fantasy football, and sports podcasts. As always, I am Jeff Malinoff, and I will see you later.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Basketball Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.